right, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Horse Racing Happy Hour.
Oh,
Louie's back.
oh, you betcha.
I got to give the show back a little bit. I might not get to talk as much.
DeSantis is on. We're not. Neither of us is talking.
All right, that's all good. Yeah, we actually is this. I'm trying to remember. Is this the first person from NYRA that's come on the show?
Yeah. Otherwise, they don't return emails. So how about that, Matthew? Welcome in.
Yeah,
I'm privileged and honored to be the first NYRA person on the show. So
to be fair, I know Darwin would do the show if it were in Spanish, like no question, like not even a thing. He'd be on here 1,000 times. He's great. It's not even a question.
So why wouldn't you do it in Spanish?
I need to do the Spanish episode.
Yeah.
I'm being lazy.
Yeah. And I'll just say sí. Me gusta me gusta pick.
Yeah. Something like that.
Yeah, that's it.
Welcome in. How was first day at Saratoga, man?
Well, it was great, and lucky for us, the rain held off until just after the last race, and so we really had a wonderful day of racing. A little bit of rain this morning, just a little light drizzle, but nothing to affect the turf course at all. The nice part is it's been bone dry up here all spring, so quite frankly, the turf court needed a little bit of rain. And yeah, it was great to see. It was a really chill day. You know, I know they announced the attendance at 22,000, but it was probably maybe a little bit lower than that. But it was just a really cool day. That was a lot of fun to be able to explore the different areas. And you could just tell people were hyped for this weekend, and the locals were so excited to be a part of it.
Yeah, man. It sounds. What's the weather supposed to be like this weekend? Actually, I haven't checked yet. I guess I probably should have checked.
It's gonna spit all weekend, but hopefully nothing too heavy.
Yeah,
that's exactly right.
Yeah. So Friday really cleared up. So it's gonna be really nice. Actually, most of the day Friday now. Maybe a little bit of chance of rain later in the day. And then Saturday now just looks kind of overcast. Honestly, no chance of rain. So it really should come up. Maybe not fast and firm, but like fast and good or something like that. I mean, I don't think it's going to have too much of an impact from a handicapping standpoint. And I think the horses will be able to put forth their best efforts.
Overcast, kind of like the New York Rangers season. No, man.
You don't have to start the show.
I'm not okay. I'm not okay.
Have to do that.
I'm not okay.
I'd have a civilization, man.
This was the year that they were good, man. We should have freaking won the cup.
Was that 100 seasons without a championship in New York?
No, listen. I was there watching Messier get the thing done, seeing them chase the white Bronco, all that stuff at the same time.
Oh yeah, God, that was the same time.
That's right. And the Knicks were in the freaking finals too.
Yeah,
against the Rockets.
By the way, Charlie Ward is he the most underrated two-sport athlete of all time?
Oh yeah, because he doesn't
wins a Heisman. He gets no credit for making the finals with the Knicks. I mean, it's ridiculous.
And he was a good basketball. He was a
really good basketball player.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, people got so obsessed with Dion and Bo, and I mean, Bo was amazing, and that whole Bo Knows campaign was like, I was a kid growing up, and that was amazing. But Charlie Ward, I don't know, because I think people knew he was too short to be a pro football player. You know, he's like 5'11", barely 6 foot, I think, as a quarterback, and so. He did get kind of overcounted or just discounted. We kind of forget about the brilliance of him.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right, man. Let's get into it. You know, we're going to start with a little just where we've seen the Triple Crown so far. We're obviously at the last race. This for me, I like this because I like to divide the year up into 2 seasons. We're finishing up Triple Crown season, and this weekend at Saratoga, I guess, is really launching us right into Breeders' Cup season with some unbelievable races. And so this is to me where it kind of flips over unofficially, right? But what are your general tastes of the Triple Crown? Louie and I were talking before the show. To me, it's one of the most interesting years where we haven't had a horse win both first 2 legs.
I think that's a point I was talking to somebody about earlier today, but I said it's a very even group. And I think that leads to a fantastic betting race on Saturday, because I think you can make a legitimate case for 7 or 8 different horses. And it's a group where nobody's really asserted themselves. And I think people maybe had hoped a horse like Fierceness might step up and be that dominant horse. And obviously ran 17th in the Kentucky Derby and now is taking a little bit of time off and is being pointed towards the Haskell. So I think what you saw was, a very close finish, obviously, in the Kentucky Derby between Mystic Dan, Forever Young, Sierra Leone. Then you had Seize the Great kind of come a little bit out of nowhere and win that Preakness with, again, Catching Freedom, another horse kind of right behind with Mystic Dan. So, I mean, there are 5, 6, 7 horses that are kind of in the top of this crop and in that mix. And I think it makes for a really exciting betting race, quite frankly, on Saturday.
Louis had Seize the Great the whole way. So, It didn't.
I love that horse.
Not out of nowhere for you.
Yeah. No, just more of an eyeball thing than anything, Matthew. It's not a figures thing for sure, but it was an eyeball thing watching him at Churchill in the Pat Day Mile. I thought that horse could be a problem in Baltimore for sure. And so glad my exacta box was very happy that he made the run that he did. I think the other thing is we have a chance, Matthew, at a really interesting debate, which is, if Seize the Gray picks off the Belmont and he goes Pat Day Mile, Preakness, Belmont, and doesn't even have the chance to run in the Derby, but then if we get a Mystic Dan go 1-2-1 in these races, I mean, where does Mystic Dan then rank among those horses that 1-2 but not the third and that kind of stuff? I think some of those discussions too next week could get really, really interesting.
Absolutely. I mean, he would become, if Mystic Dan went 1-2-1, he would be the first horse since Thunder Gulch, I believe, in 1995 to be able to run in all three, lose the middle, but win the Derby and the Belmont. So, I mean, that puts him in pretty elite company. And then, to do what Seize the Gray could potentially do with going to the Pat Day Mile and running 5 races in 11 weeks and seemingly getting better as he goes along, all credit to the coach. I mean, just maybe this will encourage some trainers to run their horses more than 3 times a year. So,
in 95 too, when Thunder Gulch did it, that was incentivized. Right, Visa had their whole thing going on where they were, So, and of course, ever since we haven't had any incentives to do that. Once you lose that middle leg, everybody's going to protect their horse, I guess, to whether they need it or not. But
we were talking before the show too, Matthew. We're a bit of a beneficiary of horses that aren't going to the breeding shed right away, running well in these races. Now, Seize the Gray is a different one. If he ends up being a great horse, his dad's Arrogate, he's going to have breeding rights that matter, these sorts of things. But with a Torpedo Anna and with a Mystic Dan winning their races respectively on Oaks and Derby Day really does set up some horses I think we're going to see a lot this year. And you made a great point there with the coach. Kenny McPeek is cut like that too. He doesn't train his horses to race. He races them into shape essentially. And so it's fun to watch those two guys have success the first 2 legs.
Totally. And I mean, I got to give all credit to McPeak for coming back in the Belmont. I mean, he could have easily said, hey, the first 2 legs took a little bit out and we're just going to, take it easy, maybe hit a Midwestern Derby and then get ready for the Travers, up in Saratoga later in the year. And, for him to come right back. And I think, we also have to kind of address maybe the elephant in the room, which is I think the 1.25 mile distance this year at the Belmont made it a little bit more appealing to a horse like Seize the Gray or Mystic Dan to run back because it's not such the daunting 1.5 mile distance that I think could really take a lot of starch out of a horse. So, I think we're a beneficiary of that. And I agree with you. I think this is a crop. And to, the point I was making earlier with it being pretty evenly divided, there's no horse in this race where you're like, wow, that's going to be a future stallion. That's a big future stud. And it's like, maybe shocking development. Some of these horses come back at 4 years old and 5 years old, maybe even and run because we need depth in that older handicap division.
Yeah, the only thing we're missing is Japan horses. Honestly, I mean, I wish I've been.
That's about it. Yeah, you're right about that. Yeah. I mean, interesting thing too, Matthew. Obviously, the move to Saratoga for the races this year during the redevelopment of Belmont Park. You and I both very much on the record that we're excited about that redevelopment. Think it's really great for the state of horse racing in New York. Talk to the people who watch this show that maybe haven't been to the racetracks on Long Island. Why did they move this to Saratoga rather than to Aqueduct?
Yeah, so it's a good question. And there's a couple of reasons.
I asked that because I think, since it's a 1 1/8 track, they could have actually set up a 1.5 mile course at Aqueduct and not really been put out in any way.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you can do it, and they did it back in the 1960s. You kind of start on the turn a little bit, and you can do it. And I mean, just like we could do it up here too in Saratoga to some extent. I mean, again, it was just where your starting gate is going to be a little bit variable. The big reason we're having it up here is because Aqueduct is, part of it is half the Aqueduct facility is a Resorts World Casino, and quite frankly, there's just not the facilities there and the infrastructure there to support a day like the Belmont Stakes, let alone the fact that obviously there are no, permanent barns and stalls on the backside at Aqueduct. Everybody would have to be at Belmont and ship over in the morning to Aqueduct. So just a lot of logistics, and it just made a lot of sense. We have a historic track sitting 3 hours away up the road, up I-87. Move it up here and give the people something truly that nobody's ever seen before, and in a community like Saratoga that is so invested in horse racing and so knowledgeable about it.
Could you ever imagine the Derby at Keeneland?
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know.
I could. They run the Breeders' Cup there, whatever. It's uncomfortable, but they do
yeah,
it.
Yeah.
I don't love it for the Breeders. I don't love it for the Breeders' Cup, but please keep, giving us credentials. But
I do love it at the Breeders' Cup.
Do you?
At Keeneland? Yes.
Shoulder to shoulder like that?
It wasn't terrible. Like it wasn't too bad.
Except for you almost flying away in the tent.
That was bad. That was
so damn good for the flight line. My God.
But
sorry, Matthew. Go ahead, man.
No, I was at the Breeders' Cup at Keeneland, and that was my first time at Keeneland, actually.
Oh, okay.
A couple of years ago for Flightline, because I was living in Northern Virginia at the time, and I said to myself, if I don't go to see this horse,
that's
absolutely right.
That's right. For the rest of my life. And I drove 13 hours through the middle of the night to get there, and I had the best time, and it was just amazing. And Keeneland's just such a beautiful track too. And yeah, it was totally crowded and packed, but by and large, I had a really good fan experience here that weekend, I will say. So I do know though that I have a couple of buddies who went there for the Bluegrass, the Essential Quality one, when it was like 32 degrees and like snowing the day before. And they were like, we plan one freaking horse racing trip a year, and it's to Keeneland for the Bluegrass, and then it fucking snows. And like,
you never know, man. You never know what you're gonna get.
Horse racing, it's like college football. Just show up and figure out the weather.
That's right.
Baby.
In Kentucky, that's how it is.
That's right, buddy.
That is 100%. All right, man. Well,
Matthew, what do you think? Just off the top of your head.
Yeah.
Mystic Dan wins, or we get a win out of Seize the Gray. I mean, which one is more impressive to you? Is it winning the Derby, then winning the Belmont running second, or is it winning the Pat Day Mile, having those 3 wins in the short span?
I'd have to say it would be more impressive. The more impressive feat, if you just looked at it on its own, might be Mystic Dan, just to be able to run those 3 gauntlets and then to complete the Triple Crown. But taking into consideration where Seize the Gray came from to rattle off those 3 potential races, like that came out of nowhere. Mystic Dan, you could see a little bit before the Kentucky Derby, like that was a pretty good horse. The Seize the Gray was trending in the wrong direction and all of a sudden became a superstar. And so, the stories are amazing, but I'd probably lean a little bit towards Mystic Dan.
If people haven't seen it, 2 weeks ago, Mike and I had the pleasure sitting down with Jaime Torres, who piloted Seize the Gray to that Preakness win, and we did kind of a film study with him, walked through the race with him. If you haven't seen that, go back, watch that. It's on our YouTube page. You can find it here on Twitter if you want, wherever you are. It was a lot of fun. He was, I thought, really open about the adjustments he had to make during the race, what was going on in Seize the Gray's mind and that kind of stuff. Really, really fun to go through those things. And I'm hoping we'll get to do more of those now that I don't know. I think we got a pretty good setup at Churchill when we want it. So
yeah, whenever I did the show last week.
Yeah, no, that's right. So hopefully we'll keep being able to get that. But Matthew DeSantis is with us. He's at Failed to Menace on Twitter. If you are the one person that doesn't follow him there, he's with NYRA Bets. He has great hair, even though he wears a hat all the time. We can get into that another show. That's a different conversation another time. But Mike Gandolfo here, still undefeated in the hair category.
Thank you.
Yeah. No,
take that on me. All right. So, one of the things that we love, and we're not going to handicap this race today because it's on Friday, is I love the Acorn. I think the Acorn is just an unbelievable race. When we look at the horses who have won this thing, Pretty Mischievous, Matarea, Search Results, Gamine, Monomoy Girl, Abel Tasman.
Did you leave out Guarana, really?
I did. I'm sorry. My old man eyes.
Sorry. Oh, okay. Got it.
Okay.
I also blame your eyes.
But I mean, this is like a who's who. Like we have the conversation all the time. What is the top 3-year-old filly race? Is it the Kentucky Oaks? Is it the Test? Is it the Acorn?
It's the Alabama, whatever.
The Alabama, right.
Yeah.
So
CCA Oaks, whatever it might be.
Yeah. So, but this is definitely in the conversation. Do you like them running this race on Friday?
I do, actually. I think it gives a little bit of that Churchill Downs feel of the Oaks being on its own day, giving the fillies their own day. A lot of other races for the fillies and mares on Friday as well on that Belmont Stakes Racing Festival card. So I like it. And the nice part is on, NYRA Bets is offering that Oaks to Belmont, or I should say Acorn to Belmont 2-day wager and double, just like you have in the Oaks to Derby. So I think it's a lot of fun to have it a little bit different. And honestly, with how loaded that Saturday card is, I like that it's letting the fillies have their moment in the sun and not getting buried in 9 other graded stakes races on Saturday.
So do you think they should move the Phipps to Friday?
The Phipps to Friday would be interesting. I will say it does stick out a little bit when you handicap, doesn't it? Like you're like, why is this on Saturday again? Like why? Okay,
why is it
like,
race 7?
Yeah, right. Like,
it might be the best race of the day.
Yeah. So I do think that would be pretty cool if they did that in the future. But I like it. And this year's races stacked. I mean, it really brought back the best horses from the Oaks, and then the horse Gunsong who won the Black Eyed Susan. So it's a nice field.
Absolutely. Anything you want to get into some handicapping here? What do you
No, I love which would be the better 3 races, Mystic Dan or Seize the Gray conversation. I think it's so fascinating. The other part, Matthew, I guess, any asterisk for you for the Belmont Stakes being run a quarter mile less? To me, no. It's not the horse's fault or the trainer's fault that we needed to renovate Belmont Park. We have friends that are, and I will be very clear, everyone I know that thinks there should be an asterisk is over the age of 55. What says Matthew DeSantis?
I'm 43, so you know which side I'm going to be leaning on.
Not an asterisk.
And so I don't see it as an asterisk, and I think part of it is because it's if we did have a horse run the table, and that is still such a rare thing to have horses run 3 races in 5 weeks, and you two know this as well. We do not breed for even 1.25 mile races anymore. Right. Correct. We breed for 8 to 9 furlongs. That's what we're breeding for. 1-turn milers. How many into mischiefs do we have? We got a whole bunch of Golden Pals who are going to be coming out soon, and Jack Christophers, and these great sprint sires. And we just don't really have a lot of horses that are built for even 1.25 miles, which is why if you look last year in the Breeders' Cup Classic, I would argue half the horses in that field had no business being in that race to get 1.25 miles. So I think just being able to get 1.25 miles twice as a 3-year-old would be an incredibly impressive feat.
And I think we mentioned it earlier. To me, the lack of distance is canceled out by the fact that we've got a much better field that we would not have had if this was 1.5 miles. Just like we talked about earlier.
So, 100%. This would be a 5-horse field.
Race. Yeah, exactly. 100%. Yeah. So
you're saying Gronkowski running against Justify wasn't a great 1-2 punch there? Is that what you're getting at? That's a weird thing for you to say.
It's thank God for like Sham back in the day. Like
right.
It makes you appreciate
Alidar, like
the Alidars of the world.
Just running.
Yeah, love it.
How dare you go after Gronkowski like that? To have a civilization.
Do you want to make an Acorn pick?
Yeah, how about that?
Listen, the pick that I picked her in debut at Saratoga. I've picked her in every single race she's run in since, and that's just FYI. I've loved this filly from the first time I saw her. I think she, it's important to remember she had her training interrupted this spring with a brief illness. She was supposed to debut in the Devonadale, and she spiked a little bit of a fever. They had to kind of change plans and take her up to Ashland, to Keeneland for the Ashland. She finished second that day. She was still kind of second back from the layoff in the Kentucky Oaks. And honestly, she was really the only horse to even attempt to make a run at Torpedo Anna that day. And I think there might be a little bit more speed to press Torpedo Anna on Friday. And I think she can sit off the pace and make a run. So I like her quite a bit in this race.
Any biases come out today? I thought horses along the rail were fine. I thought horses in the middle of the track were fine, especially on the dirt. I didn't notice. I thought it played pretty fair today.
I thought it did too. Horses were coming from off the pace. You're right. You saw some horses making huge moves down the middle of the track. You saw others coming up the rail. So I didn't perceive any bias. Now we'll have to pay attention early tomorrow because of course there was some rain after and some heavy rainstorms that came through after the races were done. And sometimes you can see bias as the track maybe dries out the next day, but nothing today.
All right, man. Well, let's get into it a little bit. We are sponsored by Manscaped.
How about that? A little manscaping. How about that?
Do you manscape at all, Matthew DeSantis?
Yeah, no, he's got the beard. So obviously, I mean, I got good news for you, Matthew. You're going to get a beard trimming set from the show. And so that's fantastic for you. Dan Issel, a Manscaped man.
Yes.
How about that? Yeah, there you go. Well, the Hall of Famer. So there you go. No, great products.
Gray hair everywhere.
Keeps you nice and tight when you're a bald guy like me, or if you have a nice beard like Mike.
Did you do that yourself?
Yeah. Oh, you bet. Yeah. You think I'm paying for haircuts? What are we doing?
Supposed to be an ad for
Good
Manscaped.
Lord.
All right.
But hey, wife's coming home this weekend. Got to be a little trimmed up. I'll be good to go by the time she gets here. How about that?
I got the anniversary coming up.
So there you go. Promo code horse racing, all one word, 20% off, free shipping to your house. And the thing Mike and I talk about a lot,
Get the underwear.
The boxers, yes, fire. Just absolute
I'm
fire.
wearing them
Get
right
the
now.
boxers. I wear them all the time.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Manscaped.com, promo code horse racing. Appreciate them hanging out with the happy hour.
All right, so we're gonna get into a little handicapping here. We're gonna start with the just the 6. Like when they do this, it's not just it's 6
just
grade 1 races right here.
You say this every year.
I mean,
if it's outside of Derby Day, Breeders' Cup, this is your day.
My favorite day.
Yeah,
for sure. My favorite day, and
fantastic.
And it's right there because you get Belmont Derby, Met Mile, Pat Day Mile, right? Like you get the Manhattan or the Old Forester. There's just the correlation is just unbelievable.
I also think of the Japer as one of the great sprints in all of North America. It's always a great race. So yeah, it's just a ton of great races. And the Ogden Phipps is always loaded. So
so we're going to start off with that Ogden Phipps, and it is always loaded. And again, if you listen to this show, you know that Louie and I tell you to fall in love with the fillies because they're going to race a couple seasons. And this is a great example of just another great field with
it's
that.
The perfect example of that.
It really is the
Idiomatic is the example. She is it.
So I mean, we obviously have a heavy favorite here with Idiomatic. Matthew, do you think she's vulnerable at all?
Maybe if they go a little too fast up front, if Tizzy in the Sky and obviously randomized really decide to go. But the thing is, she's shown enough versatility to be able to sit just off that pace and not get sucked up into it. She just looks so good. She was really impressive in that debut and the La Troyenne. And I think she has, she really kind of started to assert herself in this division late last year. And with a bunch of races up here at Saratoga. So we know she likes the track just fine. And I think she's kind of the probably one of the stronger locks of the heavy favorites this entire weekend.
Louis, is she a single for you?
She is a single for me. This is one of those where 6 horses, if she loses, then congratulations to whoever beat Idiomatic this day. By the way, I do think there's a potential rising star in this group on the outside in Raging Sea, the 6 horse here. I think she's going to get really good as a 4-year-old. Already won the double dog dare at Keeneland. Won a grade 3 to close the year last year at Aqueduct as well. I think she's right there as far as, I don't know, I have her second in my handicapping. I think she's one of those, if you wanted to get aggressive on an exacta, it might be 5-6 in this one.
I actually went, of course, obviously with Idiomatic up top.
Sure.
But when I looked at this race, what was the last race that Idiomatic lost?
She lost in the, she lost to Ruffian.
That's right. We have another horse who lost in the Ruffian here recently, but has been pretty solid outside of that. And so I had randomized as my second horse, but then
there you go.
I had the 6, just like you said. Right,
I just think she's one of those. This is feels like a Chad Brown special where she's just going to get better as the year goes along, and she'll be able to stay up. Especially, she's already won at Saratoga in her career. I think she's one of those horses she'll really relish getting to run up there all summer.
So I'm 5-1-6-3, and you are. I got pretty mischievous in that last.
Yeah, so I'm 5-6 here.
5-6. Okay. All right, we'll move on to the next race, which is race 8. Is the Woody Stevenson 7 furlong race. This is a 1-turn kind of sprint. We kind of have this thing in the show that we talk about. Is it a grade 1? It is a grade 1, but is it really a grade 1 field? Right. This is not a grade 1 field to me. I don't know how you guys feel about it. It's going to be a good race. I actually kind of think there's a long shot here that could upset things a little bit. I did have up top. I went with Vallejos, the 6-1 shot, the 8 horse, and then the long shot I have though is I kind of like the Barkside a little bit, and I put Barkside in there as my second pick. So, Louis, who'd you have? Barksdale. Sorry.
You know why you said Barkside is because you thought of Dark Side of the Force. And
Dark Side, yeah.
You are a horse racing, excuse me, a Star Wars nerd.
New Star Wars show came out yesterday.
You and I have the same horse on top, which terrifies me. So everyone, go ahead and lean against the 8 here. There are a bunch of horses in here that we're trying to.
Oh, Zach.
Somebody.
All right, Zach.
No, but I think this is so. To answer your first question,
yes,
grade 2+.
Okay,
because of the restrictions on the 3-year-olds. But I think we could look back at this and go, okay, there were 3 really good horses in this field.
I agree.
Something like that, right? They're just not there yet, right? Like a horse like Nash, I think once in a while horses win by so much in a particular race that we just assume they're going to be great forever, right? And sometimes they need time to develop. Nash might be one of those horses. I do have Vallejos on top here, though, really lightly raced. I thought he looked good in that Pat Day Mile. The horses that have come out of that Pat Day Mile have only, won the Preakness, and then Nash, of course, has been really good as well, coming out before that as well, won in the Hot Springs. Man, after that, though, I think you can go a lot of different directions with this field. How good is Prince of Monaco? How good are the Baffert trainees that are shipping in for this? Will Imagination like this better than he did the Preakness? They had trouble settling him down on that first turn. If he doesn't have to settle down, maybe he just runs away with this thing, right? So
yeah, his maturity
I've got
definitely
the maturity is a real question, but I went 8-9 Baffert. How about you, Matthew?
That's interesting. Yeah, I took a bit of a swing in this race because there is a ton of speed,
There is.
and the 7 furlongs is just a slightly unusual distance. It's not one a lot of horses run. It's horses that like 6 furlongs can't quite get, and sometimes even horses cutting back from a mile might not always like as well. And so I ended up on the far outside with BU at 15-1 as a kind of a big bomb. This is a horse that will be sitting off the pace. Has good tactical speed, but I just have a feeling there's going to be a lot of speed, and that last half furlong could just get some of those horses. I really like the number 8 Vallejos quite a bit, and he really impressed me as well. That's my second choice in this race, but I went with BU up top. Part of it was he broke his maiden at 7 furlongs recently, and the second part is I remember when he debuted up here at Saratoga, he was a buzz horse. Everybody on the backside was talking about this horse and how highly regarded he was by Pletcher. He faced some really tough maiden competition, just couldn't quite get it done, was still somehow grade 1 placed. And I just think cutting him back to 7 furlongs, you normally don't do that with Curlins, but I just think for some reason he's going to like this 7 furlong setup in the pace scenario.
He was beaten by Just Steel, Kentucky Derby runner Just Steel by nose in that race. So absolutely. And then they went straight to a grade 1 right after that. So
Pletcher places his horses as well as anyone in the country. That is something I say way too often on this show, and it is not a mistake that they tried him on the Derby Trail, and when it didn't work, they brought him back to this kind of race. Makes a lot of sense. I agree with Matthew there.
And his last 7 furlong race is the one that he won at Gulfstream Park. That 7 furlong kind of specialty is one of the reasons why I'm taking a little bit of a shot with Barksdale, because of the 3 wins from that 7 furlong.
Sure.
So but maybe not talented enough. But again, I think this race you could get a longer shot that comes in.
And with 3-year-olds, if they develop at the right time,
exactly
and
right
on the right day, 20-1 isn't so ridiculous.
We just talked about the Japer a little bit earlier. This is the 5.5 furlong turf sprint at Saratoga. This race 9, grade 1 here. Matthew, where did you go in this one?
Yeah, so I went to the far outside again. Maybe I just like picking somebody on the 12 post. I don't know. But I went with the Charlie Appleby horse, Mischief Magic, who actually won at Keeneland in that Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint a couple of years ago, and has won, stakes races overseas, whether that was in the UAE or over in Great Britain. And now this will be his 3rd race in a row in North America. He comes from the clouds, admittedly. But here's the thing. In turf sprints last year at Saratoga, throughout the entire meet, 43% of winners were coming from more than 3 lengths back at the 3/8 mile mark. So you kind of wanted to come from the clouds a little bit in these turf sprints. You didn't necessarily want speed of the speed. Listen, Charlie Appleby and William Buick, that might not be very imaginative, but at 8-1, I thought that horse provided some really nice value.
I took the other Appleby actually with Flavian Pratt aboard, Star of Mystery. So
it's a nice horse.
Right there. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're right there, though. I mean, I'm going to be shocked, I think, if Appleby doesn't win this race in a lot of ways. I for some reason, I'm not as high on Cogburn, but that was my second pick. And then I followed up. Really 8-6 or 6-8 were my big 2 right there. So
yeah, I think a couple other horses in here. Is Big Invasion capable of another big run here? You're going to get a massive price. I don't think 8-1 is anywhere close to what you're going to get on that horse. I think it'll be 12 or 15.
Yeah.
That kind of number. Big number on him. If Groom's All Business draws into this race, I don't know if he wins, but man, that horse is fast. And we saw him in the turf sprint at Pimlico, and God bless America. You talk about coming from out of the clouds. He was one of those horses. He just took off, Matthew, in the stretch there at Pimlico. If he runs that race again, he might not win, like I said, but boy, that's a horse for an exacta trifecta to consider there.
One horse that we haven't talked about that there's probably a ton of value is the 11 with Philo Ariana.
Just ran a huge race too.
Yeah. I mean, it was right there in the turf sprint.
Oh, if you want a huge number here, No Name Mets is capable of a big race.
Yeah.
I don't know if the horse is going to show up, but the Japer usually outside of, say, of Caravels here or something, this is always a really, really fun, wide open one. Feels like it again this year.
All right. The Met Mile. Is this your favorite race?
I don't like this field.
You don't like the field, but the race as a whole.
I love the Met Mile.
I mean,
I do. I adore the Met Mile.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, for a couple of years, it was about as good as it got for you. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of this field either. 1 mile, again, that's why it's called the Met Mile.
Thank you, Mike.
$1 million race. Who do you like in this race? Where'd you go? National Treasure 8-5 to me is like, I just can't do it. So
I have Blazing Sevens on top.
Okay.
I'm really uncomfortable with that fact, but I have him on top because he last raced in North America. I'm going to try to use you just raced in the Arabian Peninsula and you need a race back in North America angle here. So I'm going to lean on Blazing Sevens on top of all things. I thought he looked really good at the mile at Aqueduct last out. He's going to get a shallower surface here at Saratoga. He has won over the surface before. And so, I mean, is this the horse that we want to see over the one turn? If you look at his other races, when it was when he had to go 2 turns, that it seemed like he just couldn't get to the wire. We're getting down back to the 1.5 turner, I guess, there at Saratoga, but a little bit less distance. And so I'll put him on top. Just, I think the money makes sense here. And then I went to, I went to White Barrio. I love that horse. I really do. I loved him before he won all of his races. And so I'm not going to jump off the horse now, but I do wonder about that Arabian Peninsula thing, that bounce coming back from overseas. It seems to be legitimate. Him and National Treasure both coming back. Can Castle Chaos run? There's that White Barrio. There he is. What's up, buddy? But can Castle Chaos run a big race here? I think he's the one that could really upset the apple cart as far as, say, an exacta or maybe second spot in the trifecta, something like that. So, Matthew, I landed 4, 6, 2, and 1 here.
Okay. So I kind of saw it pretty similar to you. I like Blazing Sevens quite a bit, but I ultimately couldn't pull the trigger up top. So I commend you for that. I went with White Barrio, and I typically am cautious. I mean, we didn't even talk about a horse like Bookham Dano, who's coming back in the Woody Stevens, the previous race, who took Forever Young almost to the limit in that previous race that
and
he was in.
He's one of those guys, we might look back at the Woody Stevens, if he wins it and then wins a bunch of races this summer, that might be one of those horses.
100%. And so I also generally do, so like I said, like to avoid that Arabian Peninsula kind of first back, but it does vary by horse a little bit. Some come back and there's no ill effect. And he's been training very well for Rick Dutrow Jr. And I like the fact he's had a lot of works too. I think he's had like 8 or 9 registered works leading up to this. So I didn't feel like they were rushing him back. I feel like they let him kind of get back and acclimated. And so I just have him up there. I like that he draws to the outside as well. That's one of the things that in that Wilton shoot, that's not, you don't really want to be too far inside because that first rail kind of comes up on you pretty quick. And so I went with him up top, Blazing Sevens second choice, and then National Treasure third. National Treasure a mile, I don't necessarily love. I always thought he was a little bit better going longer. He was more of a grinder to me. And I just, I was a little surprised he ended up in this field. Not mad about it. I've always liked the horse, but it'll be fun to see him run.
I mean, I went with Brittany Russell. I went with Post Time.
There you
go. Great horse
like
there.
It.
I mean, we do all these shows for the Maryland people, but man, she's really just coming into her own and just, and I think she's making some noise up in New York. And I think Post Time's a pretty nice horse.
If this horse beats Messier last out, we're talking way more seriously about it.
Oh, absolutely. Because one, 2, 3, 4 out of the last 5 was lost to Messier and Race Kane. So,
I will say the biggest concern I had with Post Time, and this is not to be negative or critical, is Sheldon Russell rides him like he's on Flightline. And I'm like, my guy, you got to show a little bit more urgency. Like this, you're not at Laurel Park anymore. You got to get going because this horse comes from the back and you're like, what are we doing? Like, come on, you got to make this move. And like, there was no way some of those finishes should have been as close as they were. And even like the decision to go to the outside of Super Chow 2 races back when everybody knows Super Chow lugs out and then he's getting interfered with. And it's just like, why are you putting the horse in that spot? So super talented. But I was just, it's still a little too short of a price. And I'd rather take a swing with a horse like Blazing Sevens if I want to try to beat the field.
Like it. All right. So we're going to move on to the 11th race, which is the Manhattan. Another $1 million race here, 1 3/16 on the turf. I single one horse in my card, and it's this race. I went with Program Trading at 5, and that is my single here. So where did you land? Let's go to Matthew. Go to Matthew.
Yeah, I landed on a horse right next to Program Trading, number 6, Alarifa for Joseph O'Brien. We always talk about the other Chad. This is kind of like the other O'Brien in terms of Aiden's son. And this is a horse, if you look 2 races back, nearly beat a horse named Ace Impact. Now, for people who may not know much about European racing, that was at one point considered maybe the greatest horse in the world, actually. And if you go back and look at Ace Impact's undefeated career, the closest horse was Alarifa to beating him. So that one I just feel is super live in this spot. Came back and nearly won a Group 1 over in France over soft ground, going 1 5/16 and finished 4th by a half length. And that was the first race off a very long layoff. I just think this horse is pretty live and gives really good value at 6-1. I do like the other an Appleby horse, the number 9, Measured Time, as well as Program Trading as my kind of second and third choices.
I'm going to not using Al Rifa, and the only reason is this O'Brien has got to do it in North America for me before I'm going to jump on the train here.
That's fair enough.
It's been a minute. I mean, it's been a minute. It is what it is. I do like the other. I think I got measured time on top here.
Yeah.
Applebee's not shipping for this by accident. This isn't a mistake, right? And this is a race that he really loves. 45% his last 11 first-timers in North America. This is another in that long line. You mentioned program trading. I think is an obvious must-use here. Nation's Pride is in here. And I think this horse is going to get forgotten about just a little bit in this because the other Appleby is going to get the first Appleby is going to get so much money. And this is one that I think we need to kind of look back and say, okay, this horse did win at Saratoga in that invitational before at the Derby at the 3-year-old level. Back here as a 5-year-old, gets that Man of War done at Aqueduct, doesn't get it done at a 1 3/8. We're shorting up quite a bit here, frankly, under 1.25 miles in the Manhattan here. I think that distance will fit better. 6 for 8 lifetime at the distance. So to watch out for Nation's Pride, I think has a real shot here as well.
All right, we're going to head to the Belmont Stakes, the main event of the day. And if it's all right with you guys, we'll go through each horse.
So Belmont, Bell, no.
Yeah, Bell, yeah, or Bell, no.
Yeah, and Bell, nah. There you go. Okay.
And we want to do it differently than normal.
We did this, by the way, Matthew. I want to be clear. We played Preak yes and Preak no with Dan Issel, so you're in good company here. Don't worry about it.
All right, I love it.
I want to start from the back. I want to go. We'll start with the 10, mainly because
you have a nice caboose.
Thank you. Mind Frame might have been the best 3-year-old performance that I saw
Derby Day.
On Derby Day, and he was pretty awesome. Now I don't know if I would like him at 7-2 in this race, but to me, he is. If he ran another big race,
that
right
is
here,
David Aragona reading the room. Is what that's what that morning line is. That is him reading the room.
Yeah, 100%.
Yep.
I would like it way better, like 5-1, 4-1. But
by the way, this is where I didn't know we were going to get to this so early in the show.
Okay.
But the picking of bones has to happen right now with one Matthew DeSantis, who went after me on Twitter about this. He's laughing because I'm kidding, of course. But I did say I thought Mind Frame should be in the Matt Win this coming weekend at Churchill Downs because he really liked Churchill Downs last time he was here. But I also
could be a better spot.
I'm not in the questioning of Pletcher business. Like I'm not doing that.
I don't blame you.
I thought he'd be really good. Just leave him here, let him train, do the thing, get him up to Saratoga for later summer derbies. I don't know. That was just me.
I totally agree. He's my first toss. I'll be honest.
You're
I don't
tossing.
like the horse at all.
All right.
I do not like the horse at all in this race. You guys know it. You've seen the
Bell no or Bell Naw.
That's a Bell Naw. Bell no. And you've seen it all Derby Trail. How many impressive maiden winners, allowance winners did we see? Change of Command, Conquest Warrior, Dymatic, Carbone, Nash, all these horses that were supposed to be the next big thing. The second they switch off Lasix, the second they have to go a little bit longer, the second they face another horse that looks them in the eye, whoops, turns out maybe we're not quite as good as we thought we were. And right back to the Woody Stevens, the Pat Day Mile for you. And so I just get that same feeling from Mind Frame. The best horse he beat is Cornishman. That horse is the same one that Antiquarian, who's 12-1, beat to break his maiden. So this horse is going to take a lot of money. I think David's absolutely right. He is probably going to be second choice because of the connections. Yep. And New Yorkers are going to bet Todd Pletcher and Mike Rapoli all day. So he's going to be a super short price. He's got to work out a trip from that far outside. There's going to be pace with Dornick and Seize the Gray. And I just do not like him in this spot, switching off Lasix, going from 1 1/16 to 1 1/4 miles.
I do have him in my top 4, but I have him 4th. So by that means, I guess I have to go. Yeah.
He's a Bell Naw for me as well.
Okay, good. There you go.
This is. I mean, I do think though that I will keep my criticisms of Todd Pletcher to very, very minimum.
Okay.
Yeah, but he's on that barn's a little cold right now. But I agree with you in general, Louis. The Matt Win would have been a better spot, in my opinion.
It felt like how good he looked at Churchill last out. That just seemed like a natural spot for him to stay. Pletcher's actually, I mean, you talk about cold, not at Churchill, man. I mean, that's a spot where he can still pick these kinds of races.
Yeah.
The $2.3 million purchase Sierra Leone is the 9th horse here. 9-5 morning line, going to be the favorite. Of course, Chad Brown knows his way around New York pretty well as well.
Little jockey change.
Yeah, little jockey. Yeah, we're gonna go to Flavian here.
Can you imagine? By the way, can we just get this out of the way? You're Tyler Gaffalione, and you go from Sierra Leone to Protective. Like this is a thing that happened to a human being. I mean, like in front of us, man.
Yeah.
Like, oh, can I get a mount? Please, sir, may I have a mount in the Belmont? Yeah, here's
Well,
Protective.
it reminds me a little bit of when was it Christoph who took Kendrick Carmouche off integration and actually put Tyler on integration, and then integration had a terrible trip, and it's like, oh, the curse of Kendrick Carmouche. Like, you shouldn't take Kendrick off. The horse was 3 for 3 and never did anything wrong. Like, why are you changing jockeys? So,
all right, let's be really clear about why he's a bell. Yeah, there is a man named Brooke who is one of the owners of this horse.
Great guy.
He's out of his mind. And I need him shirtless in the pond in the middle of Saratoga, chasing down that canoe. That's why he's a bell. Yeah. He's also he's the likely winner here. Yeah, it's okay.
Bell yeah for me, obviously, too. Matt's the bell
yeah
for you. Yeah. All right.
Totally.
All right. We're going to go to.
Do you like the jockey change? I guess that's an important thing.
I do. I love I love Flavian in general. And I think the bit change is going to help a little bit as well. It's not just the jockey. So, yeah, I think it's a good one.
By the way, 1.5 miles, I think this horse is even money.
Oh, I think this horse wins by like essential quality, like sort of like just easy.
Blows away.
Yeah, I think if we're at Belmont, this horse, I don't even think about this race. Yeah.
Honor Marie, a lot of local connections here as well. Whit Beckman, the trainer, Frenchie on board here. It's Belmont for me.
Belmont, okay. Matthew, where are you on Honor Marie?
Like, can I do a Belmont? Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know what to do with this horse either, man.
Yeah, I could see him finishing like 4th or 5th. Like, I don't hate him in this spot by any stretch, and he has legitimate excuses from the Kentucky Derby, but I just think he's a cut below.
Yeah, that's the thing about the Derby is once in a while a horse like this literally gets like thrown into the wall at the start of the race, and they still crack the top 10, and you're like, holy crap, that horse passed 12 horses to get there, but got nowhere near the front, right? I mean, still lost by 13.5 lengths. Like, how good is Honor Marie actually? I simply don't know. It's a Belmont.
I mean, to me, he only has 2 speed figures in the 90s. He doesn't have a single speed figure that's as good as either one of the 2 races that we've seen from On Frame. And I just, I can't do it.
Is that the thing that stands out most about this 3-year-old crop is just there's not a lot of 100 buyers? I mean, it's just a bunch of 90s and that kind of stuff. Matthew opened the show with it, just how even the fields seem to feel and that kind of thing. And so, yeah, that's a really sort of fascinating thing.
Okay, we're going to go to 7 Protective ridden
Let's go
by Tyler, as we just mentioned.
Let's go, Tyler.
Another Todd Pletcher as a Belmont.
That's a hard bell no.
Oh,
yeah.
No.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it just wasn't. It's not good.
Not happening?
It's not good.
Okay. Luis Saez is aboard
Sorry, Tyler.
Door Knock here. And of course, we had Danny Gargan on our show.
Yeah, Danny. Yeah.
So
Derby
great.
week. He's awesome.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Door Knock makes his return here. 15-1. Great price here on Door Knock.
By the way, Society Man in the Matt win is a win. Yeah. Like I think he's got a legit shot, and I'm glad he stayed because I think him and West Saratoga are going to be in a really fun one here. Door Knock, I do not know what to do with. Matthew, is this a bell or no? Bell not for you?
There are some people who I respect who really like his chances in this race, but he's a bell no for me. I just don't think he's fast enough actually out of the gate. And I can't get there. And that field he beat in the Fountain of Youth, woof. I mean, that was not much.
That's right.
And so he's really not beating anybody as a 3-year-old. So it's hard for me to get too excited.
I'm right there.
The thing with him,
except Sierra Leone, you did beat Sierra Leone.
That was a 2-year-old.
Yeah, as a 2-year-old.
In that race. The thing about Door Knock is if you're going to play the speed horse who's going to get out front and try to stay out front, I'd rather ride with Seize the Gray than with Door Knock in this case.
100%.
Yeah. Love it. Antiquarian's the 5 right here. Another Pletcher entry right here. I mean,
you're up there, Matthew. Is he the buzz horse of the Belmont?
He's one of them, and I've really liked. He's a bell yes for me. I like him quite a bit, and I have him kind of second in my selections. I'm not saying that he's going to follow the same trajectory as Arcangelo, but he's certainly following that kind of same Peter Pan to Belmont move. And he's a horse that had every excuse to improve last time, and he did because he had a terrible trip in that Louisiana Derby where he broke through the starting gate and then stumbled, and then it was just a mess. And I know Todd Pletcher has been very high on this horse and has been pointing this horse towards the Belmont for about 8 months. So this is one that they really like, and I think you're getting good value at 12-1. And I just think he's a horse that has taken to Saratoga very well over the last 3 weeks.
Interesting thing about this year's Peter Pan, because it wasn't at Belmont, because it was run over that 1.125 at Aqueduct. It is a 2-turn race, right? So he does have that kind of experience now, which is really, I think, a real positive. I've obviously ran in Louisiana Derby as well. The thing here that is a little pulls at the heartstrings is may rest in peace, Brereton Jones is on the sheet here, right on the form. I love, Matthew, it's kind of a theme of the show. I love when the $5,000 horse shows up in these kinds of races, the son of Preservationist here. So to answer your question, who's rooting hardest for this horse? The people that own Preservationist. That's who's rooting for this horse right here. He's a Bell Gnaw for me, but would I be surprised if he picks off an Ohio Derby or an Indiana Derby, something like that later in the year? No, not at all. He seems like that kind of horse.
Yeah, he would be a Bell, I guess a Bell, for me, but he'd probably be my 5th horse.
Okay.
We have all top 3 finishers from that Peter Pan in this race. We've talked about.
Good point by you.
We've talked 2 of them. The next one is the 4 horse, which is the Wine Steward, Manny Franco aboard, Mike Maker. This is a horse who I liked as a 2-year-old quite a bit. When Luis Saez has been running this horse, now chooses another mount with Dornock, and I didn't like Dornock. I'm assuming that this is going to be a Bell No.
It's a Bell No for me. I thought he was set up to win that Peter Pan. He looked loaded at the top of the stretch and just kind of flattened out a little bit. It was Antiquarian that made the move and the winning move. He's a really nice horse. Of course, all of us up here rooting for a New York bred to get the job done in the Belmont would be the 3rd one ever. But he's a Bell No for me.
3rd ever, man. That's a wild stat, isn't it? 2 ever winners of the Belmont or New York breds. That's wild.
I don't think he's a 2-turn horse.
Interesting. Okay. The thing about him that always stands out is he's ran 6 times, he's never been more than a length behind the winner.
Okay.
He just is always right there. We talk about pack animals a lot. He seems to unfortunately want to run in the pack rather than pull away. So I'm going to go Bell No with him here. But a Son of Vino Rosso, I think the best, we're going to get to it in a second, but I think the best wood winner since Vino Rosso was in this race. And this is a Son of Vino Rosso. Could we see things down the line? I'm not sure, but I'm kind of with you, Mike. I think that 1-turn, cigar mile kind of race might be more his speed.
Yeah, I'm with you. Okay, so we're moving on to the 3 horse, which is Mystic Dan, Kenny McPeek, Brian Hernandez. If you are listening to this show and you don't know that Kenny McPeek and Brian Hernandez are the connections from Mystic Dan, I don't know. Thank you for listening for the first time and welcome to horse racing. I'm shocked that this horse is running in this race. Especially after Kenny McPeek's comments after winning the Derby about, how he felt like he made a mistake running this horse on short rests early in his career. And here we're going to see, but I agree with Louis. Like, this is a horse we're going to see run, and we're going to see run as a 3-year-old. We're going to see run as a 4-year-old. And I'm hoping like no other that this is a horse that people can just latch onto and maybe bring a lot of eyeballs to horse racing. He's a Bell for me. I'll be rooting for him. Definitely. I think it's a lot to ask for him to get these 3 races in this short 5 weeks. So
I'm a Bell No just because I think Sierra Leone's going to try to run the same races he's going to, and is going to be in better form.
He's going to be in better form.
That's my sense here. So he's actually a Bell No for me. I can't believe I'm saying that. Really like this horse. I would love to be wrong. This honestly wouldn't bother me for a minute. If Mystic Dan comes through and wins, it goes 1-2-1, and then we have to have that conversation. I would love to have that conversation.
Is he in every other? Because
Yeah, no, that's right. He does seem to be in every other side for sure. He really does, and I do wonder if he can do that again. But I'm going to go Bell No, and I don't have a great reason, Matthew.
I'm kind of in your boat, Louis. I'm a Bell No as well, but I could see him. You could convince me he finished. I don't think he's going to win, but you could tell me he finishes 2nd, and I totally believe you. And I could also believe you if you tell me he finishes 6th or something like that. And I go, yeah, it just was a little too much. And, he just tired down the stretch a little bit. But, obviously everybody roots for a horse like this and the connections. But, yeah, he's just kind of outside the Bell for me. So he's a Bell No.
Something Matthew and I have talked about on Rabot & Co. is this modern horse racing thing where we assume horses can't run back in 2 weeks and that kind of stuff. I have been very happy to see how deliberate they've been about making decisions with him.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen so little criticism of how deliberate they've been. Right. So like the day after the Preakness coach is like, oh yes, he's a great guy. He's going to Belmont. Like he's like, yeah, we're going. That's no big deal. But Kenny hasn't had that approach at all.
Yeah,
right?
He's kind of
those folks. He's been not coy about it either, right? Just like, hey, we're gonna wait. He's eating this amount. We're doing this. We're checking him out for this. Like I've appreciated that a lot. I've had Lance Gasway on the show as well, part of the ownership group there. Really good guy. Obviously, these are people that care deeply about the animal, but they're being deliberate. And I appreciate that there hasn't been a lot of, hey, can you make up your mind already kind of talk from people, which would be totally unnecessary. They're doing right by the horse. I think he'll be fine on Saturday.
I agree.
All right, the 2-horse is Resilience. This is the Wood Memorial winner that you were talking about there, Louis. Belmont, Junior Alvarado, and man, this horse. This is a horse Derby week that we just kind of like happened to see a lot, right? The barn wasn't far from where we were doing
right
the
in front of
show.
us, Belmont.
Yeah.
Well, he was one of those, Matthew. You know these horses in the morning. He liked to get out on the track. He turned himself to face the spires from where we were standing, and he would watch the other horses run first. He would survey.
Yeah, he actually had a stopwatch.
He'd have a quick cigarette and then decide if he was going to run. No, that's right. But no, it was fun to watch him because you could tell he was taking it in before he was comfortable.
Yeah,
and obviously Belmont's out on the pony and everything else with that. But he is a bell yes for me. No questions asked. I have him second in my handicapping. I adore this horse. I was really. And Matthew and I talked before the Derby. I was actually hoping this might be the Wood Memorial winner that broke that streak and won the Derby. I think he's that quality. I think Junior Alvarado is an underrated big race rider. I think he's going to give him an absolutely good trip here. I think the 10 horses is a lot better than 20. And I think Resilience will get a good trip. I think he's got a serious shot here. So he's an absolute bell yes for me.
Yeah, he's a bell yes for me as well. I have him underneath, but I do think he could run a huge race. He's one of those horses that you go back and look at that Derby, parked out in the 18 post, circled really wide the whole way, and just flattened out a little bit in the stretch, as you would expect, and gave up a ton of ground in the process to get to the front. But, he ran, I thought, a really big effort that day. And, we were all excited up here in New York because at the top of the stretch, it looked like Resilience was going to make a move and the curse of Fusaichi Pegasus was going to finally be broken. But he's a really nice horse. I'm glad Bill Mott brought him back in this spot. And I agree with you about Junior. All you got to do is watch that race in Senior Buscador overseas.
That's exactly right.
He's a real big game rider. Yeah.
Yep. And the Pegasus too. Yeah. No, he's.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah.
With oh gosh. Oh, who's that horse? Why am I forgetting his name now? He's got a two name horse. Keep going. Go.
Okay. Seize the Gray is the one horse. The coach, obviously the trainer here, man, Jaime aboard. And it's hard not to root for Jaime.
Art collector, right? It's art collector.
Art collector, sure.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Good God.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Seize the Gray continues to just improve.
Pegasus,
ran a huge race in the Preakness to get the win in the Preakness. Belia or Ben?
I'm not jumping off Seize the Gray at this point.
Okay,
that horse got me 59-1 and an exact bell yes. So what are we doing here? No, I think the style. I think honestly, if no one closes, if he just rocks him to sleep again, Jaime did a great job in the last race. What if he does it again? I don't think that's out of the question. He's a bell yes for me.
It's a bell no for me in much the same way maybe Mystic Dan is, in that I wouldn't be shocked if he ran well. He's just kind of just on the outside of where I'm looking, but you're right. I mean, if Dornick is kind of maybe a step slow again and Mindframe decides just to rate and maybe isn't quite as good as I think he is, then Jaime could get out, be comfortable. He's going to have the inside rail. He's going to save all the ground all the way around. So wouldn't shock me, but I do just wonder if the 5 races in 11 weeks and going a mile and a quarter might just be kind of a little too much, but a cool story and the My Racehorse element as well. Very cool. 2,500 plus owners are going to be very excited about this on Saturday.
All right. We actually have a viewer comment coming in. So our man Steve, actually going back a couple races, we were talking about post time and we mentioned the horse Messier. So he's asking, we mentioned Messier, not to change the subject, but isn't Messier somewhat disappointing / overrated? So this is a horse again. Maybe it was going back to that 94 Rangers team that when he was on the Derby Trail, I was hoping and wanting him to be.
I think I got you
phenomenal. You might have. I don't have it, so I don't know what happened to it if you did.
I got Steve. Yeah.
Steve's on here asking about Messier.
No.
Is he a disappointment? I mean, I don't know. He's grade 3 winner.
He's only a disappointment because of the connections. He's a fine horse.
Yeah.
I agree. The connections kind of inflated what people expected, but I love that he kind of has come back now with Babe Dutrow and has kind of become a new type of horse, because there was a point where it was kind of going off the rails with Messier.
Yep.
And I'm glad they kind of recorrected and they figured out what he did well and they're focused on that. And he's turned into a very serviceable and a nice horse. And that's all you can ask for from an older horse.
Something worth mentioning here before we let Matthew go. Best takeout rates of the bets at NYRA, not even close to me. Win, play, show bets are 16%. You get 15% on the picks 5s and the pick 6s. Those are really the plays that I like. They do have the Grand Slam bet, which I think is a really fun wager, but it's one that I think if you're not familiar with it, maybe Belmont Day isn't the time to try it for the first time, that sort of thing. But it is a
diving
fun
into
one.
the deep end on Belmont Day.
No, that's exactly right. Who is your? We'll just do it real quick. If you were playing the Acorn and Belmont double, how many horses would you play?
I would play one horse in the Belmont, and that would be Sierra Leone. And I would probably play 3 horses in the Acorn. I would go with Torpedo Anna, Just FYI, and Where's My Ring, who I think might just very well be able to bounce back from a bad hoax.
Love it.
I do like Just FYI a lot in the Acorn. So I think you could probably go with those 2 with Just FYI and Torpedo Anna, and maybe add another horse or 2 in the Belmont.
Well,
so
there you go.
yeah.
What kind of promotions are you guys doing up there at NYRA Bets?
Well, if you sign up today, if you're not a member already, we have a $200 match bonus. And then we also have a free $25 bet for the Belmont Stakes. So we just give you $25 to bet, win bet for the Belmont. And we have a lot of great promotions in terms of betting, $100, get 20 back, etc. So we have that. And then well beyond just the Belmont Stakes Day, we got a ton of great stuff every day of the week. But we also have a lot of fun 2-day wagers, as I was mentioning, multi-day wagers, going from the Friday into Saturday. We had some that started today with the Belmont Gold Cup into Friday. So a lot of great stuff on NYRA Bets. You can get all my content as well, long shots of the day, graded stakes analysis, track stats for a bunch of different courses across the country and more.
All right, and he really is. Matthew DeSantis is a great follow on Twitter especially if you want to stay up to date with everything that's going up in NYRA and New York racing. So make sure you follow Matthew on Twitter.
Failed to menace. Easy for me to say.
Oh, there it is. All right, Matt. Thanks for
he's
joining
like
us.
He's like Johnny P. They got those and him and Fortitell, those guys that don't have their names.
Yeah,
they use these cool things that you would find in the forum. You got to be a geek to know what they are. That's
exactly.
That's I like it. All right,
there you go. All right, Matthew, we appreciate you, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely.
All
man.
right,
Thank
appreciate
you
it so
very
much, guys. Thank you.
See you, bud.
Get some sleep on Sunday.
All right,
whatever it might be.
great to have Matthew.
We'll see you, man. There you go.
Great to have
Get him
Matthew
out of
join
here.
us.
That's enough Matthew DeSantis. All right.
All right, man. Anything else you want to get on to?
Not really. We'll have the gold book, and it's a freebie this weekend, man.
Go for it. Yeah.
Hey, look at this guy's gonna be putting out the grid.
Putting out my picks and putting them in there, and we'll see.
Right,
we'll see where we go from. But I did pretty good. I
watched
tried it out.
You hit bets at the track, and all I think is why are we not writing these down? So no,
let's do it. All right.
Good, yeah.
I'm putting myself out there, guys. Let's go. And really, it's all because of you, Dan Illman. Just want you to know that.
He'll be on with me 10:40 tomorrow.
You made me a better person. All right. We're gonna pay a tab. We're gonna get out of here. Thanks for listening. This has been the Horse Racing Happy Hour.
Do we have music or something?
Oh, Zach's here, I think.
Is he here? You sure about that?
I'm not really sure. All right. We're gonna just
Oh!